Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz. I am so excited to be joining the Spellbinders collaboration hop for the clubs this month. I will be using the large die of the month and stretching that Christmas shop into a spring house, but I will also have videos later this month for that 3D embossing folder and the quick and easy card kit, both of which I absolutely adore. So here is our large die of the month, and as always, there are just a ton of dies in here. And I think there are lots of options. So I cut that house die from some pale blue cardstock and then the upper half of it from some green cardstock. I have my roof and my door, my windows, and then there's all kinds of florals that will create a poinsettia and other winter flowers. But I wanted to see if I could stretch this, okay? And so I am gonna work on that. I'm starting by creating a little bit of grass. I just kind of brought in my house die to figure out like how far up is this going to go? Where are my stairs? Where's my door? And I am just going to fussy cut a little swoopy hill of grass to go in the front of my card. And then I'm going to use an A2 white card base and some pale blue ink with a cloud stencil to create a background for my card. This is optional. Honestly, we're going to cover up an awful lot of this background with our die. It's a huge die. I mean, I know it says large die of the month, but sometimes you get lots of small dies, and large refers to the size of the collection. But in this instance, you truly are making like one big something. So I'm just rotating my stencil and coming in. I start on my stencil and I sort of tap off a little bit of ink, and then I come up to create that little bit of cloud there. And that will create my background for me. So here's the green piece, and I'm pointing to where there's like an indented line around the house. I want to keep the green piece intact and cut off around that indented line on the pale blue piece, but it was harder to see on the pale blue piece, but easy enough, right? You just trim it off and fussy cut that, some straight cuts. You could use your trimmer if you're more comfortable. And then we're going to start assembling things as they were intended just to get started. I love that there's this little strip along the front of the roof. I think that pop of color, that little bit of accent is super fun and gives us a lot of variation and options for our house or shop. I like wet glue for adding the roof on because it's not going to line up exactly, right? We fussy cut along that. And so it lets me wiggle it until I feel like that's centered right on that die cut. Then there are these windows, and I know they're curved, and that was to make it look more like a shop, but I would love to live in a house that has curved windows and some real character in it. My husband and I live in the suburbs with our kids. Wouldn't it be cool to live in a place that was a little funkier? So I'll add my little curved windows, and then I have this navy blue door. There are embossed rectangles on the door that show you where these windows are supposed to go, but the windows need to fit in the middle of those rectangles, right? It's not going to cover the entire rectangle. So heads up there. I mismanaged a little bit, but because I had wet glue, it really wasn't a problem. Then I used one of I thought they were little circles for the insides of flowers, but they're round enough. So I used one of those for my little gold doorknob, and that will finish up the little front of the house. And from here, you could do all kinds of things, right? I'm going to start by adding my grass onto my card base, and that's just going to go from edge to edge right along the bottom. Again, wet glue all day long. And then I'm going to add my roof onto this green panel. I am going to create a floral profusion above my house. I was thinking of my neighbor, you guys. I just got a brand new neighbor. The neighbors that lived there before were friends of ours, and they are lovely, but the new neighbor is my age, which is amazing. So I'm making a new friend, and I was like, I want to make something to say welcome to the neighborhood, and her kids are my kids' ages. So that's kind of what I had in mind here. I love this as a welcome to the neighborhood card, or as just a card for any neighbor. And it's got this cute little fence. So there are little perforated lines on either end, and I'm going to use my ruler. It's just whatever you have that is straight and sturdy to help score the line, especially the one that's right along that opening for the fence. The one is pretty easy, but the other, I felt like it wanted to fold inside the fence instead of along the perforated line. Okay, so I have folded both of those as mountain folds towards the back, and it's going to wrap around the back of the house. It's a tight fit. I will tell you that right now. You could absolutely just trim off at the perforated lines and glue the fence straight onto the house. That's maybe a little bit easier, but I like the idea of this pop-up fence. So I am using some temporary tape to sort of tape that to the back and make sure everything's going to fold flat the way that I want it to before I go gluing anything down. How do I know to do this? Because I glued everything down and then I tore it all off, and I did that twice before I was like, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this. Let's make sure that my two little flaps that wrap around the back of the house are positioned as they should be before I go use my wet glue. I do like wet glue though. Again, you got the wiggle, but look at this. You have a pop-out fence. It's one of the easiest like interactive pop-up elements I could have imagined. I am going to take a second fence and trim off along those perforated lines, and I'm going to glue that onto the front of the pop-up fence just for a little bit of stability. Totally optional. I'm using pretty sturdy weight cardstock, so I think this is 100-pound cardstock. It probably wasn't necessary. I did it anyway. In my brain, every card I ever make should survive an explosion, right? We're going to make it as sturdy as we possibly can. Once I have the base of my house completed, I am going to go over some of the leaves that come from this set, along with some leaves from the Envelope of Wonder die set. And I'm going to go over them in some Delicata ink. So I have this background that's sort of a lime green. It's my favorite green for florals. And I wanted a contrasting color, and I thought a little bit of shimmer would be fun in here. So these smaller leaves are all going to go in this one little area. But that meant I wanted leaves from the other set that were going to match this slightly darker green color. This match I had not put together before, and I cannot get over it. So here are all my blooms from the Envelope of Wonder, and I assembled them all like shortly after I got it. I will try to link to the other cards I have put together using that set. It is so versatile, and the blooms come together really, really quickly. The first video, I will also link this one at the very end of this one. I made a Day of the Dead card, and I show you how I put them together, and they're so quick. They're so quick. So I'm using what I've already made. I do this. I make things by the hundreds as pieces, and then they sit there taking up my best container, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to make more cards and use these up so I can put them away. So I am just figuring out where I might put flowers from that Envelope of Wonder set and leaves on the existing template. It is great for giving you a general sense of what size leaf or what size flower might go where. And this set matches up pretty nicely, but there are a few places like that first leaf on the top right where the holly leaf was going to be sticking out from behind it. So I'm just using my scissors and trimming off any place where I feel like maybe I don't want that back template to hang out quite so much. There's a bunch of places where they're supposed to be, maybe they're holly berries, maybe they're mistletoe berries. I'm not real sure. And I found that these little sort of 4 petal leaves from the set fit beautifully on top of them. And I just cover up like the 2 berries that are right next to each other. I'm overlapping everything. If there's little pieces of green peeking out from behind, no one needs to know what that is. No one's going to second guess that. They're going to assume that you did it the right way. And you can turn this into anything you want. So again, I'm using Envelope of Wonder, but check your stash. What florals do you have that are sort of small and medium florals, and see how they might fit on here. I'm just adding pieces one at a time. I love on these that they've got that sort of pop of gold. I mean, I did that, but I love that I did that, I guess. And then for some of the others, they have a little black center, but I used a gold metallic pen and just put a little dot of gold on them to help tie them into the rest of them. And I like that variation in color. Here, I figured out where I wanted some other pieces. Really, Those large sort of rose floral pieces aren't super wintry. You could have included those as they were. They're just not my favorite floral. And so I wanted to use some of these others that I love so much from the other set, but you could use kind of what comes with the set. Because they were too big as a base, I just trimmed them off and I did a butcher of a job on it. Doesn't matter. No one's going to see it. We're going to glue it flat to our card base. Okay, and so I'm just checking everything now, making sure that they're going to cover up what's left of the green. And then I'll start gluing those down too. I'll use my little wax pickup tool and it makes this really quick and easy. Okay, let me tell you about the hop. This is a hashtag driven hop. So if you click on the hashtag in the title of this video, it will pop up for you all of the other videos that are in the hop, and you can see lots of inspiration for many of the different clubs that are released this October from Spellbinders. There's so many wonderful options. If you're new here, welcome. I'm primarily a die cutter. I also love surprising elements on cards, and sometimes that's a funny sentiment. Sometimes that's a pop-up feature. I would love to have you join me. So please leave me a comment below. Tell me that you're new here. Click the like button if you enjoy this card. Click the subscribe button if you'd like to see more crafty adventures. I'm always a little goofy, a little weird. So if you're like, is it just this video? No. Welcome to my channel. And then tell me what you like most about card making. What makes you happiest? I've got this final flower I'm adding to my card and I was like, let's pop it up. And I'm going to use some 1mm thin foam squares from Spellbinders. These are my very favorites. I like a little dimension, but not so much that it looks like somebody put some kind of like 2x4 underneath the elements on my card. I'm going to add that whole thing to an A2 card base. So it will open at the top. And then I will start working on my sentiment. This is from the Fill My Heart Sentiments. I think this came out in May. And I'm just going to grab the hello. I really like the font on this hello. So I am taking a little piece, like just a scrap of some dark teal cardstock, and I will stamp that down using some Versamark embossing ink. And I will heat emboss that with a little bit of superfine white detail embossing powder. And then I'm going to try to figure out where in the world I'm going to put this on my card. It's hard for me when I put together something really complicated like this. And then I'm like, what am I going to cover up? Except that every time I'm brave and I'm like, cover up something that's the heart of the card, I get really happy about it. It feels like the sentiment is integrated and really a part of the card. So I'm going to have it overhanging part of the window here. I did add a thin foam square just on the right-hand side since there's so much cardstock on the left-hand side. And that will finish everything off. You can see the dimension from that fence there. I can press it flat to fit it into the envelope, and that will finish everything up. Please check out the Spellbinders website so you can see what they've done with the Christmas version of this shop card. And I will see you next time.